Hi. I'd like to first start on a review. I'm interested that you think it's not democratic. In the last reform, which was in 1971, we voted to be in the EU. I think that the fact that it was a long time ago doesn't make any difference. The youngest person who could have voted then is now only 53, so there's still people alive who have voted to be in the EU. Despite that, I agree with you. I think it is entirely necessary to have a reform. I think that the fact that there are now anybody under the age of 53 hasn't voted for it should be a reform. I think that there isn't a I don't know where you got your information about which way UK would vote, because I read information that said that 67% of people would like a referendum in the UK. They want to be able to vote on this. And you may say that means they want to leave. No, it's not. I found that 42% of people said that they would leave, they would go to stay in the EU, and that they would choose to be in the EU. My minister said that he said that I'd be talking about economy. I am. Financial sector is one of the most important parts of our economy. It brings in 9% of our GDP. Now, the people who represent the financial sector is the City of London. Last time there was a referendum to say whether we should leave the EU or not, the City of London bankrolled. They completely paid for the advertising, for the setup of debates. They paid for the side that didn't want to leave the EU. Now, the reason they did that was because they understood that if we leave the EU, that our economic situation will be a lot far worse off. In a situation where we are tightening our belts, why are we turning down the EU when they form a large amount of our economy? I don't know whether you guys have realised, but about 50% of our trade is with Europe at the moment. We have more trade with Ireland than Brazil, India, Russia and China put together. Now, with our dealings with China and Russia, we actually came out with debt. We came up with deficit when we were doing them. So we're not just hoping to, I'll take it in a minute, we're not just hoping to, we're not saying if we turn down Europe that we will we have better trade elsewhere. We need Europe to be without a deficit, because Europe at the moment is where all our trade is. I think if we leave Europe at the moment, we'll have several big problems. We'll make no mistake, so if we leave Europe, we are not going to be very popular with Europe. So that 50% of trade is going to be taken back. It's going to be a lot harder to trade. We're going to have to organise different trade agreements and situations which have been running for a long time. You said Switzerland aren't part of the EU, and yet they don't have a problem. That's because 50% of their trade isn't stuck in the EU. You say that Belgium has never been part of the EU. It's just agreed to the trading rules. Yes. But again, they're not part. They weren't part of the EU to start with, so they don't have the bitter feelings from the EU that will prevent us from going back to the trade.
You said that 50% of our trade is with the EU, but surely by maintaining the EU trade agreement, by still opting into that, it won't affect our trade with the EU.
Thank you. It's an interesting point. I personally think that it's wrong. I think that if we leave the EU, we won't be able to come back in. We won't have the luxuries that we have had with we won't have the luxuries that we've had with the economic situation at the moment. We'll have them taken back, and they are not going to be in a situation to give us a light budget. Yes, we have a large amount of trade in the EU. We put 11% of the EU's trade. So you might think that we have some sort of chip to gamble with. No, this is 50% of our trade. Who's got the upper hand? 11% of the EU suffering, or 50% of our trade? They will be able to manipulate us and write all the laws and regulations to their want. So to summarise, I think that leaving the EU would be an appalling decision, especially in these economic times. Thank you.